Well, today is the day that we celebrate as Father's Day. And I think that's a wonderful thing, even though I've always called Father's Day National Give Dad a Tie Day. Because in my experience, most of the time, Mother's Day is celebrated much more than Father's Day. And now here's just a little thing out here, just a side note. If you don't know what to get your dad as a gift, there are things called knives, guns, and tools. Okay? Any person that says they don't know what to get their dad as a gift isn't watching. And I've had some pretty good Father's Days. One time, Debbie and the kids kidnapped me, took me to the coast, and gave me a wonderful present. But Father's Day really is not as popular as Mother's Day. Fathers are not held in as high esteem as mothers are. I was really pleased seeing on Facebook some of the nice things about Father's Day. And Sirius Radio yesterday had Peter Noon and his daughter doing a Father's Day special. And I really appreciate that. Because God is our Father.
That's right.
And if we do not have respect for the institution of fatherhood, how can we respect our Father? If we don't have that, we don't get it. And it's especially important in this day when masculinity is called toxic. And there's a concerted attack on fathers and fatherhood. I'm not saying that all fathers deserve respect, but all fathers should get respect. You know, I talked about toxic masculinity. I'll just throw one thing out there. If masculinity is so toxic, then why aren't all those kids out there who don't have a father in the home doing better than they are? Just a little reality check. One of those things I like to do every once in a while is take what people say and then look at the real world and go, wait a second, let's go back to reality here. Now, I want you to turn to Deuteronomy, the 6th chapter and verse 7. Deuteronomy 6 and verse 7. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk to them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. This is talking about the laws of God, but and when you read the next verse about binding them as a sign that was only done to men, we're finding out this is talking to men. This is talking to fathers. Their job was to teach God's word to their children. That's their job. But I think we forget, because of the way things are today, that was the father's job in everything. That was their job. They were the teachers. We've gotten into a situation, because of the way things are today, that moms are the ones who do the teaching about God, about how to do everything. When we left the farm and went to the city, and Dad had 8 to 10 hours that he had to work, Dad stopped being the teachers. But that was, and I believe still is, the primary purpose of being a dad is to teach your children. Teach them about God. Teach them about how to mow a lawn, how to change a tire, how to do your taxes. We don't always live up to that, but I think that's what our job is supposed to be. And you notice I didn't say teach your sons. Every single person needs to know how to change a tire. Amen. Everybody needs to know how to mow a lawn. Everybody needs to know how to cook and clean. Those things are not gender specific. Amen. Teach your children. And fathers, take the time. I know that you're tired when you come home from work. I know the weekend is the time that you want to rest and they want to go do things. But make time to do your job. We have gotten in our society to believe that the father's job is to go out and make the money. And mom's supposed to do everything else. That's pretty much what it is. But I want you to turn now to Matthew 7. And I'm going to get something out of this that we don't usually think about. Matthew, the 7th chapter. That's not the correct chapter, but the thing is that Jesus said, why is this switching?
Look at verse 7.
7, 8, 9.
See, that's the one I want there. Let's see. Get back to the thing. My thing jumped on me, and I have to get back to the place of the Bible I was. But what I wanted was if a man's son asks for bread, will he give him a stone?
9.
And if he asks for fish, 7.
9.
Matthew 7.
Aha. That's it. And if he asks for a fish,
Yeah.
will he give him a serpent? Well,
That's it.
I want you to get something out of that maybe we don't usually get. Who do we ask for our for food and for things? In our culture, it's go ask mom. Dad gets the money. Mom does the food. But in here, we're seeing that there's a picture here that, you know, when I looked at that and I wrote that down there, I specifically goes, oh, that's a 4. Let me make sure it looks like a 4. Yeah. Matthew 7, 9 through 11. But what do we see here? We see that Jesus is showing that fathers take care of the children. They do that. We need to understand that. Now, yeah, you know what? No dad is perfect. And that's what he says in verse 11. If you who are evil know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good things to those who ask him? The best father you know is not perfect. The best dad you know made some mistakes, and whether you know it or not, he has some regrets about things he did or didn't do. But we need to remember that we are human, and there's a lot of evil even in the best of us that we have to fight. And so we need to understand that as people who are going to be looked at as what God is like, we fathers need to try to be good fathers. Now, not everyone is. I'm going to read, I want you to turn to 1 Samuel, the 2nd chapter. And we'll be reading verses 12 through 17. And then we'll stay there, and we'll go a bit further after that. Now the sons of Eli. Eli was the judge of Israel. He was a priest and a judge. He was a ruler of Israel. And the one who should be standing as a good example of what God was. Now the sons of Eli were worthless men. They did not know the Lord. The custom of the priests with the people was that when any man offered sacrifice, the priest's servant would come while the meat was boiling with the three-pronged fork in his hand, and he would thrust it into the pan or kettle or cauldron or pot. All that the fork brought up, the priest would take for himself. This is what they did at Shiloh to all the Israelites who came there. Moreover, before the fat was burned, the priest's servant would come and say to the man who was sacrificing, "Give meat for the priest to roast, for he will not accept boiled meat from you, but only raw." And if the man said to him, "Let them burn the fat first, and then take as much as you want," he would say, "No, you must give it now, and if not, I will take it by force." Thus the sin of the young men was very great in the sight of the Lord, for the men treated the offering of the Lord with contempt. Eli hadn't done his duty as a father. He hadn't taught his children. And he didn't do the unfortunate part of being a father. It's called discipline. He didn't do that. And here are men that didn't know the Lord, but they were priests. That wasn't all they did. Turn down to verse 22. And we're going to see some stuff here. Now Eli was very old. And he kept hearing all that his sons were doing to all Israel, and how they lay with the women who were serving at the entrance to the tent of meeting. And he said to them, "Why do you do such things? For I hear of your evil dealings from all the people. No, my sons, it is of no good report that I hear the people of the Lord spreading abroad." someone sins against a man, God will mediate for him. But if someone sins against the Lord, who can intercede for him? But they would not listen to the voice of their father, for it's the will of the Lord to put them to death. Too little, too late. Could he have said, hey, you cannot be priests? You, as the priest and as a judge of Israel, he had a duty to do that. And as a father, he had a duty to his sons to love them enough to make sure that they did what was right. Love doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. Love means sometimes a little bit of pain. I have to throw in a funny story. One time, our grandson was not allowed in the kitchen. He was not allowed in the kitchen because, you know, there's things that are dangerous there. Well, one day, Debbie opens the oven, and he had walked into the kitchen and starts to put his hand on that oven door. Well, you never saw footwork so beautiful. Debbie has her hands full, so her foot comes out, grabs him, and throws it. Boom! That was love. Discipline is love. It's trying to tell people, don't put your hand where it don't belong. Had a teacher one time, he would go around, because back in the old days, when you were in class, you sat at your desk, and your feet were under your desk. They were not out in the aisle. Like that. That was not the rule. And he would walk by and step on toes on purpose. And you stepped on my foot. If it was under the desk where it's supposed to be, I wouldn't have stepped on it. Yes, Eli was a bad father. But there are good fathers. I want you to turn to Genesis, the 5th chapter, and start with verse 21. When Enoch had lived 65 years, he fathered Methuselah. Enoch walked with God. After he fathered Methuselah 300 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Enoch were 365 years. Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. When Methuselah had lived 187 years, he fathered Lamech. Methuselah lived after he fathered Lamech 782 years and had other sons and daughters. And thus all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. When Lamech had lived 182 years, he fathered a son, and called his name Noah, saying, out of the ground that the Lord has cursed, this one shall bring us relief from our work and from the painful toil of our hands. And we'll skip down to verse 32. And after Noah was 500 years old, Noah fathered Shem, Ham, and Japheth. You have 5 generations of righteousness. 5 generations of righteousness. Enoch taught his son, who taught his son. And you go, whoa, wait a second, what about Noah got drunk? Yeah. He was still a righteous man. Everybody makes mistakes. Thus sins they should. You know, what about Ham and the curse of Ham? Well, if you look in the Bible, there is no curse of Ham. It says, cursed be Canaan. It wasn't Ham. It was Canaan. You don't curse the son for what the father does. And you go, well, my youngest son is what it says. Well, Ham wasn't his youngest son. But if you read the Bible a lot, you'll see that grandchildren are called sons just the same as sons are. So here you have 5 generations of righteousness. We need to get back to fathers doing our job of teaching our children righteousness. It's not mom's job. Yes, she can do it. And should she? Yes, she should. But it's the dad's job. When you get up, when you sit down, when you walk along the road, when you go to sleep. It's your job to teach your children righteousness. Teach them how to work. Teach them how to play. Teach them how to love God every day. We want to honor those fathers that are trying to do a good job. I didn't say they're doing a good job because most of us fathers aren't always that sure how good of a job we're doing. But if you're out there trying to do a good job, this is a day to remember that it's an honor to be called a father because you're being like God. If anybody needs to answer the invitation today, this hasn't been an evangelical lesson. It's been this is something that we need to do and understand. Okay? But if you need to make it right with God, if you need to come to God because you've never come to Him, what better time is there than the present? You can come now as we stand and as we sing.